Thank you very much. I'll be delivering the Yukon placer industry overview for 2022, and this is a collaboration between Chef Bond and I. This year we had 147 active sluicing operations, so we deem an operation active if they're consistently sluicing throughout a season, so on a daily basis or weekly. And of those operations, 72% are in the North Yukon, and that's predominantly the Dawson area. It includes operations all the way to south of the Stewart River. 20% of those operations are active in Central Yukon and 8 in South. The industry faced some challenges this season, not a surprise to those in the room, but diesel was 30% higher this season. There was also delays in the supply chain throughout the territory, and we also had a very high precipitation events in both the Yukon and the middle of the mining season this year. This year, total reported placer production for the Yukon is 80,165 crude ounces as of November 8th. This is a record high for us in modern times at this time of year as we see reporting come in over the winter. So pretty substantial production coming from the industry. This also marks the 6th year that the industry has reported over 70,000 crude ounces. So pretty impressive reporting from the placer industry. Using the average gold price this year of $2,335, this equates to $149.8 million in revenue generated from the placer industry. On the left, this is a map of the placer areas in the territory. So they go from 1 to 10. And on the right-hand side is a pie chart breaking down the reported production into each of those placer areas. So it's very similar to previous years. The bulk of production is coming out of the Indian River area at 47% of the placer production reported. The next 3 highest reporting comes out of Lower Stewart River, West Yukon, and the Klondike River area, and those ranging between 10 to 15% of the current reported production. Moving into the Indian River, we see the highest production coming out of the Indian River area since 2018. At just over 35,000 crude ounces. The highest producing drainage in that area includes the Indian River, reporting just over 14,000 crude ounces, followed by Eureka and Dominion Creek, hovering around the 6,000 ounces. Just for clarification, that it's not surprising that the Indian River area reports the largest placer production due to the density of the operations in this area, because this district includes not only Indian River proper, but also the prominent drainages of Sulfur, Dominion, and Quartz Creek. Moving into one of the largest operators in that area, we have Feingold Resources. Feingold Resources has been active here for a number of years, and this year we saw a change of hands to a new operator out of Alberta, the Little Prairie Group, but Feingold Resources remained the operator this season. In the past, they've been active in both the Indian River as well as Eureka Creek, but this year all their activity was focused on the Eureka Creek drainage. They focused mining on the right limit, and they processed 270,000 yards of material, and of which they sluiced 25,000 yards. Leasing off of Feingold Resources, we have Treadstone Gold. This is their fourth year leasing off of Feingold, and they're active in the upper reaches of the Eureka Creek drainage on Right Fork. And on the right side of the screen, we see what they're targeting here, and they're mining virgin side pay Eureka Creek gravel that has been buried by fan gravels from an unnamed right limit tributary. That's that shaded yellow polygon. On the left, we have Brian and Sharon. Brian is with Treadstone Gold, and as all of you know, they discovered the the calf mammoth, mummified calf mammoth, on June 21st this year. And we greatly recognize them, appreciate their cooperation and working, and their significant contribution to Yukon paleontology. Moving upstream on the Indian River, we have Little Flake Mine, which is Parker Schnabel, another large operator in the area, and operating up to 30 employees, running 2 11-hour shifts. They process 400 cubic yards in their 2 plants, operating almost daily, 24 hours a day. They sluice 3.8 million square feet from the modern floodplain of the Indian River. They also completed a substantial amount of reclamation this year, where they contoured and top-coated approximately 200 acres. Moving on upstream to the confluence of Australia Creek, we have M. Tatlow and Sons. And so this is a small two-person operation that are able to process significant amount of ground each season. So this year they mined an area of 34,000 square feet. And what's neat about this operation is that they really focus on progressively reclaiming each cut. So as soon as a cut is done, they backfill and they recontour and they move on to the next. So really nice to see this operation. Moving up onto Dominion Creek, this is mid-Dominion Creek here with Adrian Hollis. This is a view looking downstream Dominion Creek on the right limit. So Adrian, with a crew of up to 3 people, have been stripping this 2,000-foot-long cut, and he sluiced about half of that this season. An interesting note from Adrian is that he's a really inventive fabricating guy and really prides himself in his green mining techniques. So on the left we have these track-mounted conveyors that he fabricated called the Hollis Hauler. And they're able to move 500 to 700 yards of material an hour. So pretty efficient earth-moving techniques happening from Adrian. Moving over to TD Oilfields, active in the Gold Run Creek drainage. They've been active here for a number of seasons. And in 2020, they drilled a left limit bench in this drainage and determined that there was local gulch gravels coming right out of 34 Pup. So this is a left limit tributary, if I didn't mention that earlier. And how they mine here is that they're employing monitors to thaw the frozen gravel and overburden. So pretty efficient way to mine. Despite the thaw isn't super fast here, so what they do is they spend bulk of the season thawing gravels and stockpiling pay, and they conduct sluicing in a week-long period about once a month. So here on the left-hand side is Clint Marster holding out some of that really local gold derived directly from 34 Pup. This is also an interesting area in the fact that Gold Run Creek has undergone a significant amount of historic mining. So it's been mined predominantly or extensively since the 1900s. And so it's kind of neat that these operators are still able to find drainages that have never been mechanically mined. It kind of speaks to the potential that there's still potential for remaining tributaries in the Klondike area. We also had TD Oilfields active on Upper Sulfur Creek. So this is their claims at the mouth of Friday Gulch. And using the Yukon Consolidated Gold Corp data, which YGS has been acquiring for the last number of years, they were able to look at the old drilling and dredging data that robust dredging operation used. And so here here's the drilling results, and those are in historic grades using $20.67. And so they actually delineated their cut this season using that historic drilling from the 1950s. So really nice to see that the use of historic data is very useful for the modern industry. We had a new operation in Sulfur Creek this year, and that was Lucky Dog Mining on Green Gulch. Green Gulch is a left limit tributary of Sulfur, and it has been mined in the past, but not in quite a number of years. So this 6-person operation processed 10,000 cubic yards this year. And they opened up a 130-foot wide cut. They were predominantly mining a weathered bedrock colluvium deposit with a thin gravel layer. Moving downstream on Sulfur Creek, we have Yukon Heli-Ski. This is another success story of an operator determining that there's economic gravels remaining below these dredge tailings. So really proving the fact that although the dredges were all over in the Klondike, they didn't necessarily excavate these valleys efficiently. So what Pete and his crew, they drilled last year with a sonic rig, and they intercepted up to 3 feet of virgin Sulfur Creek gravel. So some really coarse gold coming directly out of Sulfur Creek. On Lower Sulfur Creek, we have Favron Enterprises. This is a pretty big operation here, and they're active right at the confluence of Sulfur Creek and Dominion Creek. They reclaimed 1.3 million square feet this year, and that includes cuts they've mined in the past couple seasons, as well as they reclaimed historic dredge tailings that they drilled for economics and didn't deem that there was a substantial amount of gravel worth going under. So they flattened and top-coated with organic-rich soil, and on the left-hand side, it's a regrowth of that vegetation. Really interesting also coming out of this operation is that they're the only a placer operation that I'm aware of that has an active timber harvest plan. And this year they harvested 400 cords of wood off of their claims they're preparing for mining. And with 2 seasons of drying, they're going to be able to contribute those 400 cords of wood directly to the fuel wood supply in Dawson. Moving on to Upper Dominion, this is another relatively new operation in the Klondike. We have Wesley Gwilliam, who purchased his claims 3 years ago. And that dashed line at the top of the right-hand photo is actually the Hunker Hunker Bonanza Loop Road, for those that know the area. So pretty high up in this drainage. And what Wesley here is mining with a 2.5-person operation with his very active 3-year-old is up to 8 feet of colluvium. So he's predominantly mining weathered bedrock and colluvium and getting really local gold. Moving on down to Quartz Creek, we have Schmidt Mining. This operation has been active in the drainage for many years, targeting this right limit bench deposit. In the last 3 years, they stripped 740,000 square feet of material. And the pay channel in this deposit is 300 feet wide, and they sluiced a total of 260,000 square feet out of this deposit. Moving over to the Klondike River area. So the Klondike River placer area includes Klondike River proper, as well as Bonanza Creek and Hunker. A little bit of decrease in production from this area, but still reporting just under 12,000 crude ounces. The highest producing drainage in the area out of the Klondike River is Lovett Hill, which is a lower high-level bench deposit on Bonanza Creek, producing just over 2,500. And then moving over, we have Paradise Hill reporting over 2,000 ounces, which is a tributary, a high-level bench deposit also on Hunker Creek, and Hunker Creek itself producing just over 2,000 crude ounces. Moving on to Lovett Hill Corp. So this is a big change in the placer industry this year. Lovett Hill acquired these claims from Northern Shoveler earlier in the season, and they really attacked mining this high-level white channel deposit here. And they used both mechanized and hydraulic stripping, and on the right-hand side is a gravity-fed stripping on the Jackson Hill side, so that's the town-facing Dawson City side. And they acquired water from the Klondike River, and with 3 lifts were able to get water to the top of the hill, and they deemed that they were really able to thaw and liberate frozen gravels at a pretty impressive rate this season. Moving on up Bonanza, we have Joe McIntyre, active on the right limit. He's leasing claims from Coleman Exploration. Here you see there's Brent Ward for scale on the right-hand photo, and what Joe found was up to 6 feet of Bonanza gravel. This was the first season that I've ever seen virgin Bonanza Creek gravel, which is pretty exciting, and really bouldery, coarse ground. And so this deposit, tucked in onto the far right limit of the creek, was actually protected from historic mining because it's covered by a rock slide. So really large bouldery cobbles are overlaying here, and the dredging operations were unable to get into that back cove of the deposit. So really neat to see this deposit from Joe. Moving on upstream, we have Adrian Hollis. He also a new resident in the Bonanza Creek area, acquiring these claims early last year. Interesting, so Adrian, as I mentioned earlier, from Dominion Creek, he employs those really efficient earth-moving track-mounted conveyors. So he employed those on the hill this year. He also mined these historic races or tracks, and those were what were used to transport material off of the hill to be sluiced during the hydraulic operations in the early 1900s. I work with Adrian quite a bit because he's a big fan of mine, which always feels nice. He really likes working with the historic Yukon Consolidated Gold Corp data. So compiling that historic dredge data and drilling data, as well as using air photos and historic photos from Dawson City Museum, he's able to basically conduct some desktop exploration for his placer property here. Moving on upstream to El Dorado, a bit of a theme of the season. This was the second time I've seen virgin El Dorado Creek gravel tucked into the left limit. And Rodale Placers partnered with Rick Gillespie, and they mined these 2 deposits this year. So they were mining side pay that remained masked by the overburden, and they also targeted some historic tailings mined by Dave Johnson in the 1970s. Moving over to Hunker Creek, we have KT Mining. With a crew of 2, they also were mining virgin Hunker, a bit of a theme here this year. They determined that there was a sliver of Hunker Creek gravel that never dredged. Likely due to the confines of that valley, it made it difficult for the dredging operations to get in there efficiently and work that deposit. So we also had Favron active on Dago Hill. This is a lower left limit, high level bench to Hunker Creek. We had Favron Enterprises, they stripped 10,000 square feet this year. They sluiced about 50% of that cut this year because when they got down to the bottom, they realized the lower 15 feet was actually frozen. So they'll continue stripping that cut next year. They also sluiced 30,000 yards of material that they had stockpiled on Bremner Hill, which is a tributary to Last Chance. And they also completed a significant amount of reclamation on the hill in cuts that they've previously mined. Moving into West Yukon, we have just under 9,000 crude ounces reported so far. The top producing drainage in that area is the 60-mile river. It's no surprise due to the density of active operations there. We're going to remove the 60-mile river just to zoom into the other contributing creeks in the area, and that includes Bedrock, Canyon, and 10 Mile, all reporting over 400 crude ounces. Moving down to Bruin Creek in the 40-mile area, we have Crisis Mining. This is their 3rd year mining in this drainage. And this 4-person operation has previously been active in the lower reaches of the drainage, and this year jumped up. And what they intercepted was these low-level right limit benches, seen in the shaded polygon here. So I don't believe previous operators maybe knew about the extent of these benches, again masked by overburden in the drainage. I look forward to visiting these folks next year as they're going to prospect further upstream for the lateral continuation of these benches. M2 Gold Mines, mining on the 60-mile river proper. This is the first year that they jumped up onto these prominent right level benches that are on the 60-mile river. These high level benches are approximately 80 feet above the modern 60-mile river, and pretty neat to see. There was a significant pay zone there, a bit wider, a bit thicker of a deposit than they initially thought. Their goal is to sluice 2,000 hours on their plants with their crew of 20 people. Moving over to 10 Mile Creek, tributary to the 60-mile river, we have No Name Resources. Jeff and I had a really great visit with these folks this year, and Cam Johnson spends his last couple seasons mining these high-level bench deposits outlined in that dashed white line. And he targets a meandering pay channel that cuts through those high-level deposits, and that heavy pay channel is distinguishable due to its higher silt content, and it's really white. This year he saw that pay channel really took a hard turn and swung off of the bench and probably got reworked into the 10 Mile Creek area. On the right-hand side of the slide, we see a new type of matting in the placer industry, which is dredge stream matting, and that's being fabricated out of Edmonton. And this might be a new type of product for the industry, which is told to us by Cam, really durable and good at concentrating in the plant. Moving over to Lower Stewart, we have steady production coming out of that area, which is just under 12,000 crude ounces reported. The highest producing drainage in that area is the Henderson Creek area, followed by Kirkman, Scroggy, and Maisie May, all reporting close to 1,000 crude ounces. On Henderson Creek, we have HC Mining. This is one of the largest operators in the region as well as in the Yukon, and he, with up to a crew of 20 people, have been progressively mining downstream towards the mouth of Henderson. They've been active in the modern Henderson Creek Valley, but this year when I was there, I was able to see a little bit of this right limit bench, a really small deposit remaining in the valley that hasn't been reworked. So I don't know if it's large enough there, but you can see where Hayden, he ran up to 4 plants running 24 hours a day, so really moving a lot of material at this operation. And these 3 Macon decks were fed with one 470 excavator, for those dirt moving folks that know what that means. Moving on to Fellhawk Enterprises, so they were leasing ground off of HC Mining on their North Henderson claims. Will Fellers and his crew have been active here for a number of seasons, and they're continuing to mine upstream. But the most important thing about this is that Will was a recipient of a YMIP funding this year, and he was able to explore an unnamed left limit tributary on Upper Henderson Creek. And with that funding, he was able to drill 27 6-inch sonic drill holes with Northern Sonic, and they determined that there was presence of side pay and a decent amount of economic gravel in the valley bottom of that tributary. So maybe we'll see a new operation moving into that drainage next year. Moving over to the Scroggy Creek drainage, we have Mariposa Creek. So the upper reaches of Scroggy Creek are held predominantly by Stenick Bitterman, and Aquila Mining is a 6-person operation leasing these claims off of Stenick. So Mariposa Creek is known to be a historic rich placer producing drainage, and saw a lot of cap mining in the mid-1980s. So what Aquila did is they moved into this drainage and they started processing those cap mining tailings, and they were doing pretty well. But as they inched over to the right limit of Mariposa, they intercepted a massed bench deposit here. So Jeff and I had a great visit with these guys looking at the bench, and when we flew over, it looks like there was definitely a continuation of this bench deposit running all the way down Mariposa, so a significant amount of resource left in Mariposa. We had a new operation, we had a new creek in the Black Hills area being mined this year. That was Dustin Weatherly with his crew of 3 people. Dustin has been mostly active on Dome Creek, but this year stepped just upstream of Dome into Larson. Pretty coarse, cobbly ground here, a great country to employ his D-rocker that he was able to process up to 60 cubic yards an hour. But Dustin finished off the season mining in Black Hills proper this year. Moving over to Clear Creek and Mayo, we see a bit of reduction in reporting this season, both reporting just over 4,000 crude ounces. Reduction in these areas is due to the shift of some large operations in that area. The highest producing drainage in these areas is Clear Creek, reporting just over 1,800 crude ounces, followed by Granite and Josephine, reporting just over 1,000. Moving into the Clear Creek drainage, we have a locally named tributary called Wally Creek. This is a left limit tributary. And these folks, the Hollingworths, have been here for a couple of years now and mining with a 3-person operation. They were mining in Wally Creek proper, and as they mined up to that mouth of that tributary, coming in on the left-hand side of that photo, they noticed an increase of coarse gold. So what they did, they wondered, what is this tributary reworking here? So they jumped up onto that bench, you can see exposed, and determined that there is a bench. And so they spent the season exploring this deposit, and we look forward to seeing a bigger cut in there next year. We have Schmidt mining on Josephine and Big Creek. So 2 cuts were completed on Big Creek this year, and that drainage is completed for this time, as the plant from Big Creek was relocated to Quartz Creek for Schmidt mining to conduct sluicing on quartz. They also mined 3 claims on Josephine Creek here, and the cut width's pretty narrow setting, 40-foot wide cut, and as they're moving up into this drainage, it's getting more narrow, and it's a pretty shallow placer deposit. Moving over to Bennett Creek, this is a tributary to Minto Creek, which drains out of Minto Lake in the Mayo area. I had a great visit with Jesse, taking over from his dad, Ken, and he processed a 1,500-foot long cut this year. 8-people operation, and they sluiced 80 cubic yards an hour in their deck. What they targeted was 4 feet of gravel here, and it was only overlain by 3 to 10 feet of overburden, so really good stripping ratio for this operation. Moving over to Keno, we have Bardus and Placers active on Thunder Gulch. So the last 5 years, they've been active in the Lightning Creek area, but this year they stepped upstream in that drainage, operating 1.5 kilometers upstream from its confluence. They completed a 300-foot long cut, 100-foot wide, and they really targeted a 60-foot wide pay channel meandering through that deposit. So this is the only operation that I've ever seen use gravity feed water to supply water to the D-rocker in the center photo here, but really efficient operators in this area. We have FTG mining on Duncan Creek. These folks acquired their claims from Mel Zeller, And through a YMIP funding this year, they were able to conduct some sonic drilling, which determined where they're going to be mining this season. So 17 drill holes were completed. This 6-person operation slew 650 hours this year. Moving on over to Keystone Creek, which is a tributary to Mayo Lake, we had Dulac mining moving in. They focus mining on the apex of a fan delta landform, and the glacial history has been quite complex in the Mayo Lake Valley and really made the deposits in here quite complex. So as this operator's moving up into the confines of the Keystone Creek area, the ground's becoming a bit more easy for them to interpret, and they look forward to seeing them open cut next year. In the past, Granite Creek has had up to 4 operators leasing off of the claim holders there. And this year we saw a bit of a consolidation of operations. So this is a new mining outfit from Belgium, NDB Northern Mining, and they moved into the drainage in July this year, and they were able to complete 2 cuts in the Granite Creek drainage. The most significant thing here is their thick 43-foot pay deposit here, so really good width to that deposit in granite. Moving over to the Dawson Range, we have pretty consistent production reported out of here, producing just over 2,000 crude ounces. Canadian Creek being the highest producer, just over 1,000 crude ounces. We had our sole operator, Derek Dodge, active on Seymour and Big Creek here. He was predominantly conducting exploration. He was doing large test bidding where he would haul 400 yards of material up to his plant and process. And this photo on the left is a picture of one of these old terrace levels that are on the lower reaches of Seymour Creek. We have Weber Creek draining the Nansen Creek area with Capital Gold Mining. So this was a property prospected by Eugene Curley, and I'm sure those of you know we lost Eugene this spring. But he's really recognized for his contributions to the placer industry. And it's no surprise that there's operators in here due to the favorable mineralogy in the headwaters. And this is the 2nd season for these operators. Look forward to seeing their cut next year as they move further up the drainage. We're still awaiting production out of the Kluane area. Typically, Tick Resources on Gladstone Creek are the latest sluicing operation, probably sluicing till Christmas this year, so we don't see production reported till a bit later. So that being said, we are looking forward, Jeff and I, to seeing reporting trickling in over the winter as we have the potential for one of the highest modern years for placer production, reported placer production. So it really speaks to the stability and the strength of the placer industry in the Yukon. And we thank all the placer miners. Jeff and I have really established great friendships and relationships with these folks, and without them we wouldn't be able to conduct our work. So thank you.